Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Friday, May 2nd, 2025, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. It is the revenge tour of the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief Donald the Con Trump. He is upset at members of Congress who call for his impeachment, even though he deserves it. We'll be joined in studio by Congressman Al Green to talk about this. Also, Mercedes Van Jones sat down with some idiotic black Trump supporters. Where do I show you the stupidity that they uttered during that interview? Also, Senator Raphael Warnock rips the first 100 days of Donald Trump. We'll have that for you as well. Plus, in tonight's edition of the Crockett Chronicles, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett breaks down why the federal MAGA budget cuts will hurt many Americans. Also, we'll have part two of my conversation about how what happened with Shadur Sanders is not racist, but it's racial. We'll talk with the co-founder of Urban Edge Network, who will tell us about what he had to deal with in corporate America. Folks, it's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time, and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. Yeah, it's on go, roll, y'all. Yeah, it's Roland Martin. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, fresh, he's real, the best. You know he's Roland Martin.
Folks, Donald Trump, twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief. He is attacking anyone and everyone. This is all about a revenge tour. That's what it boils down to. So now this idiot says Republicans should consider expelling Democrats pushing impeachment efforts against him. Okay, in his latest social media tirade, he came after Michigan Democratic Congressman Sri Vanadir, who introduced an impeachment resolution citing a sweeping abuse of power, flagrant violations of the Constitution, and acts of tyranny that undermine American democracy and threaten the rule of law. Well, this is what the con man had to say about that. So pull the tweet up, and you'll see this here. Well, first of all, it's going to be hard for y'all to see that tweet, guys. We should have put that in our graphic. It's hard to see that, y'all. And so it's just all kind of craziness in here. He says the Democrats are really out of control. They have lost everything, especially their minds. These radical left lunatics are into the impeachment thing again. They have already gotten two no-name, little-respected congressmen, total whack jobs, both throwing the impeachment of Donald J. Trump around for about the 220th time, even though they have no idea for what I would be impeached. Actually, they do. Maybe it should be for cleaning up the mess if they left us on the border or the highest inflation in our country's history, or perhaps it should be the incompetent withdrawal from Afghanistan or Russia, Ukraine, or the attack of Israel on October 7th. It only proceeded because they allowed Iran to regain great wealth. These congressmen stated that they didn't know why they would impeach me, but we just want to do it. The Republicans should start to think about expelling them from Congress for all of the crimes that they have committed, especially around election time. These are very dishonest people that won't let our country heal. Why do we allow them to continuously use impeachment as a weapon against the president of the United States, who by all accounts is working hard to save our country? That's laughable. It's the same playbook that they used the first term. And it's a whole bunch of other stuff that he just goes on to say, blah, 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 blah. And that's what he does over and over and over and over and over. Okay, he called lowlifes, he called Shifty Adam Schiff, and all this sort of stuff like this here. So joining us right now is Congressman Al Green. You've been quite vocal, Fred, about Donald Trump and his actions needing to be impeached. Just the latest salvo. I mean, we're dealing with a completely unhinged individual.
He's desperate. He's entirely desperate, and he has no guardrails. You've seen what Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson said. She's in fear of the judiciary having some concerns, and she's encouraging her colleagues to have the courage to stand for justice. This man who has been convicted, as indicated, 34 times, twice impeached, desires to be a dictator. In fact, I contend that he has already crossed that line. When you defy orders of the Supreme Court of the United States of America, you're there. But there are those in the country who would have us believe that there has to be a constitutional crisis before you can engage in impeachment. They would want us to wait until the tanks are rolling into major cities and taking over capitals. This is our time to deal with it before we get to a point of no return. I believe that impeachment is imminent. I believe that is necessary. I pray that my colleagues will see the same. But whether they do or not, I will introduce articles of impeachment. They will be read on the floor of the Congress of the United States of America for all the world to know why Donald John Conman Trump should be impeached.
I mean, here's what's crazy. He gave an interview the other day with Terry Moran of ABC, where he literally said he doesn't necessarily have to follow the Constitution.
That's right. Says it. Yes, he has confessed there, but he also had this meeting in the White House with the president of El Salvador, and at that time, he and a number of his key cabinet officials, they went on to talk about how the man's an illegal alien and how he's a member of some sort of crime, a gang. But here's the point. It doesn't matter what he's done. In this country, you're entitled to due process of the law. Doesn't matter what you've done that violates the law. You still have that right to say, hey, you got the wrong person. Hey, this is something else, and I'm not associated with that. He never had that opportunity. But it's not about him as much as it is about you and what can happen to you if we allow this to happen to him. If it can happen to one person, it can happen to another. And if it can happen to another, it can happen to me and possibly you.
We talk about lack of due process. We talk about just him cutting, just decide. I mean, we just saw last night, issues an executive order. He just can't cut the corporate or public broadcasting. I mean, he thinks he can do whatever the hell he wants to do.
Well, he is now governing by executive order. That's what it is. And each of these executive orders will have to be appealed, they'll have to be litigated, and it takes time to do this. In the meantime, he is now having his executive orders fulfilled. And then we have to come back and people have to be rehired. He is disrupting the lives of the American people. But more important than this, my dear brother, he is inculcating fear into our society. There are people who are afraid to take him on. Well, I'm not. I'm going to take him on. Mr. President, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. I will not be intimidated. I'm going to bring articles of impeachment against you.
Well, on that particular point, you've got people who are afraid. There are people who are afraid to protest. They're afraid they might get, called a terrorist. And you can't just let this guy get away with whatever he wants. There has to be accountability. He has to be challenged.
When he won't obey the orders of the court,
right,
and when the Republican-controlled Congress will not take up its constitutional mandates against him, that only leaves Democrats. And Democrats can do what they may. I'm a liberated Democrat, unbought, unbossed, unafraid. I have said that I will impeach. I will say it again. He will be impeached. But let me add this. People of the country, understand this. When this man crosses the line and fulfills his desire to be a full-time dictator, he's a part-time tin-horn dictator now. But when he fulfills his desire to be a full-time dictator, it will be too late. You don't wait until there's a constitutional crisis, and you don't have to have one to impeach, and you don't wait until there is a dictatorship. You do this to prevent the dictatorship. You do this is the patriotic thing to do for a person who wants to stand for liberty and justice for all.
Again, it's just crazy what we're seeing, and you're dealing with someone who's completely unhinged. And then this creation of a Department of Government Efficiency that is not even a real department, allowing individuals who are not properly vetted, who have not been, who have no credentials making these decisions. He's just running roughshod, and frankly, Republicans are saying nothing, doing nothing, not even holding him accountable. They are truly pathetic in how they are dealing with this.
Absolutely. And you are eminently correct. DOJ, the department, well, presidents don't create departments. Congress can create a department. They can't. So what he has now is a fake department. He had a person with a chainsaw who who was lauding what he was able to do in terms of cutting salaries, cutting people. They did a cut on NASA. We were out protesting with those persons. They want to eliminate the Postal Service that is in the Constitution of the United States of America, eliminate it by privatizing it. They've said that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. That's going to impact people who have made an investment in their futures. They're going to cut into that. And of course, I stood on the floor of the Congress of the United States of America, and I had my cane in hand, and I pointed out to the president that he does not have a mandate to cut Medicaid. He doesn't have a mandate to cut Medicare, nor does he have a mandate to cut Social Security. And that has become a battle cry across the length and breadth of this country. In fact, around the world, people understand now that this is what he would do. As you know, they're mandated to cut $880 billion from the committee that has oversight of Social Security, over Medicaid. And if they cut that $80 billion from that committee, then that's going to leave a lot of people suffering who are in need of medical attention.
Indeed, indeed. Congressman Al Green, we appreciate it. Keep the pressure up.
Well, let me just add one more thing, if I may, as I close. Listen, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't dip, I don't chew. I do have some vices. But remember this, if I am missing, I'm expecting you and this station, you, dear brother, to demand some accountability for what happened. This man is so unhinged, and he has people out there on the street who are unhinged. We don't know what can happen to people. When you have federal judges who have protection, federal judges, a chief justice on the Supreme Court saying we need protection and you've got to be careful. When he's talking about impeaching them, and he knows what that's going to do, it's going to send a message to those people on the street. So I just expect you to make sure that there's some accountability.
That'll happen.
All right.
You can bank on that.
All right. Thank you,
Brad. I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. Folks, going to a break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr, we look at one of the most influential and prominent Black Americans of the 20th century. His work literally changed the world. Among other things, he played a major role in creating the United Nations. He was the first African American and first person of color to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And yet today, he is hardly a household name. We're talking, of course, about Ralph J. Bunche. A new book refers to him as the absolutely indispensable man.
His lifelong interest and passion in racial justice, specifically in the form of colonialism. And he saw his work as an activist and advocate for the Black community here in the United States as just the other side of the coin of his work trying to roll back European empire in Africa.
Author Cal Rostiala will join us to share his incredible story. That's on the next Black Table, here on the Black Star Network.
We begin tonight with the people who are really running the country right now. Now, Trump is often wrong and misleading about a lot of things, but especially about history. Donald Trump falling in line with President Elon Musk.
In the wake of the unsettling news that MSNBC has canceled Joy Ann Reid's primetime show, The Readout, Roland Martin and the Black Star Network would like to extend an invitation to all of the fans of Joy Ann Reid's MSNBC show to join us every night to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming on the Black Star Network for news, discussion of the issues that matter to you, and the latest updates on the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief Donald Trump and his unprecedented assault on democracy, as well as co-president Elon Musk's takeover of the federal government. The Black Star Network stands with Joy Ann Reid and all folks who understand the power of Black voices in media. We must come together and never forget that information is power. Be sure to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered weeknights, 6 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/Roland S. Martin or download the Black Star Network app.
Hey, this is Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. That boy, he always unfiltered, though. I ain't never known him to be filtered. Is there another way to experience Roland Martin than to be unfiltered? Of course he's unfiltered. Would you expect anything less? Watch what happens next.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Let's continue our conversation with our panel, because I'm telling you, what we are witnessing is just shameful and despicable. Dr. Zachary Kirk, educator and content creator out of Atlanta. Morgan Harper, director of policy and advocacy, American Economic Liberties Project out of Columbus, Ohio. John Jackson, a U.S. Marine vet and former Democratic strategist. Glad to have all three of you here. Zach, I'm going to start with you. I mean, the thing here is this here. This idiot said, I want to be a dictator. Then he goes, oh, only on the first day. And Sean Hannity laughed about it, and the Fox News, and everybody, oh, he's just joking. He's just joking. He's just joking. He's not serious. But when you look at these actions, when you look at this attitude where you can do whatever you want to, cut whatever you want, fire anybody you want, no accountability whatsoever, it's just absolutely insane. Zachary, I think you're on mute.
It is insane. And not only is it insane, this man is being enabled by the only levers of constitutional power that can reel him in. We have a Congress that is refusing to act, and we have a Supreme Court that has that's refusing to act, and that's allowing him to run amok and drive our country into the ground. He is taking power, usurping powers that have never been granted and given to a president. This is the United States. This is a country of no kings. Yet we have someone trying to be that. We are in a constitutional crisis, as House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has said over and over and over. And I just want to say to Congressman Green, I'm so thankful that you brought him here, that he was able to address the American people, because the members of our CBC have gone above and beyond in regards to their work in sounding the alarm and being on the front lines. Where are the rest of the members of Congress? We have an entire party, the Republicans, who are enabling this and making sure that his authoritarian dictatorship takes place. We need to see some conscience in the Congress that goes beyond our CBC. These people we elected these people to do a job, and now it's time for them to do it. Our country and our democracy depends on it.
Yeah, but they're not going to listen. They're not going to do it because this is about power. I keep telling everybody this. This is about power. It's control. Morgan, that's what it boils down to. They're not going to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it's pretty clear that for a lot of Republicans in Congress, all of this is pretty baked in. All of this being, Trump, a lot of his moves in trying to consolidate power in the executive branch. I mean, I'll give a real specific example. We saw that Trump went ahead and fired 2 of the Democratic federal trade commissioners, and that's a bipartisan independent commission. It wasn't just the FTC. He tried to do it at the National Labor Relations Board as well. He's trying to do it everywhere because there's consolidating power, like you're saying, Roland. And we didn't hear a peep from any Republican member of Congress. And what's even more hilarious if you want to call it that, but it's all disturbing, so not really that funny at all. But the Republican chair of the Federal Trade Commission, just a day before, had given a whole talk in public in Washington, D.C. about how important it is for the American democracy to have bipartisan commissions and registered dissent from a person of a different party if they don't agree with where the majority is going. And then the next day, Trump goes ahead and fires those commissioners. And what does this guy say, the chair of the commission? Cool, rubber stamp. We just proceed with our work. Well done, President. So, I think if you are a Republican member of Congress at this point, if you are a Republican appointee in a position in government, you are not at all likely to be somebody that is about to say anything that's happening out of the White House is problematic. In fact, quite the opposite. I think if you want to both keep your appointment and also get reelected to Congress, I think the game that's being played here is you got to just fall in line and pretty much co-sign on anything that's happening.
John, I'm very clear. I have zero respect for any of these people. I cannot respect them. I can't listen to anything that comes out of their mouths. They talk about the rule of law, and it doesn't matter. They just say whatever. Their gross mistreatment of people It is evident in how they act and how they move and how they respond. And I don't give a damn about any of them because they are despicable individuals who ignore the law to stand with this thug, Donald Trump. And that's what he is. He is a thug.
So I think it's important to understand how we got here. And how we got to this place is misinformation one. Misinformation one in 2024. For those who were on the fence, maybe not hardcore MAGAs who decided to vote for Trump, for those who decided not to vote and weren't engaged and thought it didn't matter. We had a choice. We could have avoided this. And so a lot of folks are wondering how we go forward. And I want to bring up an example of Roland Martin doing the right thing. I saw Roland Martin on the Patrick Bet-David show, sitting down with right-wingers, holding his own, being attacked, and holding his ground. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to stand up even when it's tough, not be chummy like Gavin Newsom was with Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk. He did not put out misinformation. We must never miss a chance to dispel the misinformation that got us to this place. A poll recently came out that said 1 in 4 Trump voters is feeling a little bit of regret. And those are probably the more independent people who fell into the misinformation that this guy was actually worth a damn. And so it is very important that you get more folks angry, more folks speaking out. The whole nation should be in protest mode because the only thing that's going to get us out of this situation is the people rising up, being engaged, and the majority of the people of the United States standing up and not tolerating this by their voice and by their.
Let me be real clear. I'm going to kick their asses at every opportunity I can get. I'm not scared of any of them, not backing down. You know, and you've got, and the problem that you have is you've got some black folks out here who run their mouths on YouTube and Instagram and who feed this nonsense and what they always, Democrats are just failures. It is always just nonsense, frankly, that you hear from them. And then when you look at this sheer stupidity that comes from a lot of these shows out here, I don't watch. Let me be real clear. I don't watch these cable news shows because they're awful. But I definitely, but that was this conversation on CNN, and it was a really stupid conversation. And that was this so-called lefty who I had to, I mean, she's supposedly a progressive, supposedly, who all of a sudden, let's see, what's this idiot's name? Her name is Batya Ungar Sargon, American Jew, author of Bad News and Second Class, okay? And she claims that she identifies as a MAGA lefty. And this is how she described herself. She says she's Trump's, she said Trump's pro-worker, anti-war, socially moderate America First agenda was a Democrat's platform for a century. Now it's MAGA. I'm deeply humbled by everyone who reached out to share that this resonated with them. She was on Bill Maher. Okay, just so you understand how stupid these people are and the stuff that they say. And they love talking about the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, all this sort of nonsense. I mean, listen to this unhinged nutcase as they are talking about I'm going to get it set up in a second, due process. Let me get it all set up first. But these people, Zachary, they're like the hell with the law. Now, these are supposedly the law and order people, but now it's like, the hell with the law, and they don't care. And then what their whole game is, well, let's position Democrats and let's okay, y'all are fighting for this guy in El Salvador. No, they're fighting for the fucking law. And as black people, we know what failure to get due process looks like. We know what that means. The youngest person ever put to death in America was a young black kid who did not get due process. So we know that real well. Due process is when you're lynched and you never even were charged. Just some white folks said you did it. That's called lack of due process. Zachary?
That was a beautiful full circle moment, and why every single Black person who watches this, whether you're watching it live or you're watching in the replay, that what's happening to the migrants and the people who are in this country legally, authorized and allowed to come here legally, seeking asylum, seeking refugee status, on work permits and work visas, who have green cards, that are being detained by ICE and shipped to a foreign nation that is not the nation or country of their origin. Why this matters to you and to everybody in the Black community. They are testing and pushing the rule of law to see what they are able to get away with and what level of resistance will be given by the people. And as sure as my name is Zachary and I am Black as Black can be, they're going to do the exact same thing to our Black asses too, as soon as they can. That's the entire point of all of this. They started with one marginalized group, and it's going to spread from group to group to group to group. And we can't sit back and we can't be complacent and say to ourselves, well, that's not going to happen to me, because our day is coming, and it's coming a lot sooner than I'm afraid many of us are thinking. And we heard that echoed in what Representative Green said. I'm going to be honest with you, Roland, I'm still stuck at his warning at the end. And I don't even know to what extent it was a warning as much as it was a call to action and a plea for help. This man knows what is happening in Washington. This man knows how serious the threat of Americans' democracies crumbling really is. He knows the rights of the people are being taken away. He knows what's going on. And he literally made and to me, in the best platform he could, on right here with you on Roland Martin Unfiltered, letting all of us, the people that need to know first, know what's really happening.
Morgan.
Yeah, so I have a few thoughts. One, completely agree. I mean, I didn't see the clip that you're talking about on Bill Maher, Roland, but if someone is saying that they don't understand why we would care about what's happening to the man who's been deported to El Salvador, I really question your logic, because just has been said by the fellow co-panelists, by you, by Congressman Green, that this is not limited. Once you start violating laws, it can impact anyone, and there can be always a fabricated justification for doing that. So that, completely agree, ridiculous. I guess I want to come back to this idea of people who supported Trump, though it was only because of misinformation, and just make sure we are all a common understanding of what we mean by misinformation. Because in my view, if someone decided to support and vote for President Trump, and they're saying that that was because of some economic motivation, because their life hasn't gotten better, because they don't feel like prior Democratic administrations have delivered for them, I don't think that that's misinformation. Now, maybe they were misguided to think that this administration was going to somehow be better. Maybe so. But just that they don't feel satisfied by what's come before, I don't put that in the category of misinformation. I don't put that in the category of an irrational position to be landing on. And I do think it's very important for us to be honest about that when we do start thinking about what comes next. And if whether it's a member of the CBC or, a Democratic member of Congress that does respect the Constitution, that does want future presidential administrations that are going to uphold and honor the Constitution, if that's the goal, is to get somebody like that elected, then I don't think that we can neglect all these other reasons that people are giving for why they want change and why they are willing to take, what we might categorize as somehow irrational steps to try to get that change, because their lives haven't actually improved. And we've got to talk about that. We got to be honest about that. And we have to find a way to motivate them to either vote differently, or probably even more relevant, to turn out to vote at all, which I'm guessing is a larger category that's going to be relevant for Democratic politicians that are trying to win elections in the future. Those that have opted out of showing up to vote altogether.
Oh, I mean, I understand that. I understand that. But I think the point that John was making, and it is a real one, that when you look at the information that is going out, when you look at what is being fed to the public, and then when you begin to understand how people are responding to that, it makes a difference. And I was talking about this, crazy, outlandish, unhinged conversation that was taking place on CNN. And when I was, watching this, I was sitting here going, okay, this is the stuff that people are being fed. What we have to recognize is that, and especially how social media is operating, the algorithm is feeding you the same stuff, and they're purposely doing it. We know for a fact that TikTok changed their algorithm to appease Donald Trump. We see what Elon Musk is doing. When you talk about, I saw something else. I saw this where an engineer at Twitter said Grok, this is Twitter's AI, whatever, they said was positioned, was augmented to appeal to the right wing. So these things are happening. I'm gonna play for you. I'm trying to find. We'll get this clip ready. I'm gonna play for you. This was Van Jones talking to 3 black Trump voters in North Carolina, and one of them specifically talked about the issue of where he got his information from. Roland.
You do well. And here we are in South Carolina with 3 Trump voters. You weren't always a Republican.
No. Actually, I come from a family that was like super Democratic. My first time voting, I voted Democrat. I voted for Joe Biden.
What about Trump appealed to you?
Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah, you can go.
I mean, part of it is he's an asshole. I like authenticity.
You voted for Obama then you voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, but 2020 you voted for Donald Trump. What made the change?
I began listening to someone, her name is Candace Owens, and I read her book, and it just opened my eyes to maybe he's not this person that I have been led to believe that he was.
So you voted against Trump in 2016,
yes,
but then in 2020 you voted for him?
Absolutely.
Why?
I saw how things were going during his first term, and I was pleasantly surprised, and I was pleased with what was happening. I saw the economy getting better. I saw country relations in certain countries getting better.
What are some things that he's doing that you do like?
For me, I like the border. I just don't like the idea of someone coming here illegally and getting benefits that can serve my community. So that's the reason why I support him on that border policy.
When you think about the border, you think about people coming here who are getting more help than people who live here and who were born here.
Yeah, and I got that perspective not from news channels. I got it from social media. TikTok is like a holy grail. We even see it with the things that we learn about the United States government outside of the United States. People are showing Americans, hey, look at what's going on. Do y'all know that your government is doing this? Have you seen this? Have you looked at it from this perspective?
You know, people, when they think about a Trump voter, they usually think about like a white dude with like a red hat on and a pickup truck, and y'all are not that at all. So Donald Trump's team went in, they took down Harriet Tubman's picture for a quick minute. They're trying to like knock out the black museums. What does that have to do with the price of eggs, and how does that impact you?
In some ways, it's a slap in the face. In other ways, I don't care. I care more about how I'm going to take care of my children.
I don't think the average American cares about that. I know I am sick and tired of seeing black people sit there and complain about something, but not taking action and steps to actually try to change things in an appropriate manner.
Under the Trump and Biden administration, they came to certain agreements with police departments to be less brutal toward the black community. Trump has now ended all that. How does that help the black community?
I have a lot of issues with police reform and just with how police officers are treated as a whole. My husband is currently going through the process to become a police officer. The amount of hatred that cops get, even the best ones, I think has become a huge problem, because it has been, especially around election times, when it definitely comes out of like, oh no, the cops are bad, the cops hate you because you're black. They're immediately deemed as evil.
This man is talking about running for a 3rd term. Now, what do you think about that?
The 3rd term, for me, absolutely not. I think it's at the end of these 4 years, it's time to move on.
This is a prime example of him trolling people, because people have said, they're like, oh, if he gets in the office, he's gonna be a dictator. He's gonna try to run for a 3rd term. So he's like, okay, y'all think I'm gonna do that? I'm gonna mess with y'all and say this to tick y'all out.
I thought you loved this man because he's so authentic and he's such a truth teller.
But you need to know the difference between somebody trolling somebody, and this is a prime example of him being a troll.
If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump again, yes or no?
Yes, I would. Now, in the future, I am not a diehard Democrat or diehard Republican. If there were a Democratic candidate who was more aligned for me, then I would vote Democrat.
If you go back in time, would you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
Yes.
I think I might know the answer on this next one.
She said yes. It's immediately yes. No, I'm sorry.
If you had to do it all over again, would you vote for Donald Trump, yes or no?
1,000% absolutely yes.
John, those are three of the dumbest people I've ever seen in my life. Okay, so let me just unpack what I heard. Now I know Morgan's like, oh no, you can't go there. Actually, I can go there because those are three idiots. First and foremost.
Well, I want to hear the rationale.
No, here's why. First of all, when the woman in red, yeah, I was listening to Candace Owens. We know she lies. We know she just lies. Well, I was listening to Candace Owens and I read her book. Okay, you're listening to a grifter. Okay, so she's not giving you factual information. She's a grifter. Then let's go to this idiot dude who needs a haircut. Okay, so he's sitting here, yeah, TikTok is the holy grail. I'm not getting my information from news channels. I'm getting it from TikTok. Here's what we know based upon polling. People who got information from news sources voted more so for Harris because they got factual information. Folk who got their information from non-news sources, they voted for Trump. So right there, he's listening to people who don't know what the hell they're talking about. Then, I kind of like it that he's an asshole. Okay. I don't know how you can run against that because if you just choose not to be an idiot, I don't know how you could do that. But then you got the other woman, I'm sick of black people who don't try to do something to fix the situation. I'm sorry. Those three were in North Carolina. I recall something called Moral Mondays. The environmental justice movement began in that state. They have been fighting fascism in North Carolina since Obama won in 2008. And then there's, my husband's trying to be a cop and these bad things they say about cops. Would you like us to do the roll call of black people who have been killed by cops? Would you like for us to actually do that? I mean, so people like that, I mean, to be perfectly honest, there are some black people who I think are so delusional and so out to lunch, you're not going to reach them. I don't believe that that's who you should be going after, not those three. You're not going after them, okay? Because if you're so willing to believe lies, and then you promote the lie that you heard, and it's not even remotely factual, then how in the hell do you counter that level of stupidity?
So I can comment on this. From working on campaigns, we have a universe of voters we call persuadables. And a previous comment stated that there are some things that Democrats, liberals need to improve on. And Roland, you touched on it. Informed people voted for Kamala Harris. But here's the problem here. The majority of Americans are still not college educated, and Democrats slipped with every non-college educated demographic. Even with Black Americans, that was Trump's strongest group of Black Americans were Black people without a college degree. And so I think that part of putting out misinformation is being able to message people who might not be as educated as us, who might not understand things as easily as we do. We've got to learn how to break it down Barney style, as we used to put it in the military. We have got to explain things to the hood, explain things to the holler, explain things to people who might not get it and don't easily get it. That is going to be the key to saving democracy, because in 2024, it's a fact. You know, no after-action report shows us doing well with people without college degrees, and we've got to figure out a way to stop them from falling into the misinformation rabbit hole. We got to stop these Gen Z men. One of those guys was a Gen Z man. We got to stop these Gen Z men from falling into the misinformation rabbit hole.
Well, but I think this is also where, Morgan, when you start breaking down, I mean, you look at the pathetic PAC, Future Forward PAC. 70% of their money was spent on linear television. That was just stupid. What people need to understand is we are now living in a social/digital first world. We are, okay? The world of the Time, Newsweek, cable networks, broadcast networks, they do not, on a daily basis, on a 12-hour block basis, a 4-hour block, an hour, a 30-minute, by a minute-by-minute basis, they do not really speak to the hearts and minds. If you do not have a targeted social digital strategy where you're flooding the zone with real, truthful information that's also entertaining, you're gonna lose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've been in this digital age.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not an accident that you have someone who is Gen Z, younger people, who are mostly getting their information from TikTok. I hear that all the time when talking to young people. Why is that? Because TikTok is free, right?
Right.
And so if you're at this point trying to be a well-informed consumer of lots of information sources, well, get ready to pony up. How much money for digital subscriptions? It's going to be, I know I pay $12 to be able to read my local paper, the Columbus Dispatch. Then if you want to try to read New York Times, Wall Street Journal, all these online platforms, support Roland Martin. And
I'm pulling up TikTok right now to sit here to keep going, because I'm gonna say something about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's free, and so absolutely agree with what you were just saying, that this is where the people are at. This is where they're going to be. This is where people who have maybe less money are going to be at. But this is also just where younger people want to be at, because they like consuming information like this online. And it's not an accident, though, or it's not an inevitability, I should say, that there's only certain kinds of platforms that get traction over others, like a TikTok, or some of the way that the ad market has been structured with Google and Facebook. So here's why I push back a little bit on this is just the inevitability, or Democrats have done enough here. Is, when's the last time you heard a Democrat talk about this? When's the last time you heard a Democrat talk about the market structure that has allowed local media to be decimated over the past 20 years?
But hold up.
Right?
To answer your question.
Okay.
To answer your question, and this is why it goes to what you just saw. From 2016. So if you go from Trump winning in 2016 to present day, how many times have we been inundated with, let's go to a diner? What are the Trump people thinking? To your point, even mainstream media, they ain't talking to Democrats. They're not talking to progressives. They're not saying, hey, how do you feel about what's happening right now? Everything, and again, this is where we have all of these media people, all of these media folk, they are centering Trump, and it's
by design.
And it's it's like they're really concerned, and it's because we had 6 years of economic anxiety, and I was like, that was bullshit. So what we have to also just recognize is what is also being fed to people. What's being fed? We talk about Trump and the administration on this show every day, but we're telling people what they're doing. I'm not interested in all, like, you heard that woman sit there and go, oh, he's just trolling people about a third term. No, he's not.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing I very strongly disagree with.
See, but here's the thing, Morgan, but this is my point, though. The problem is every time Trump said some crazy shit, people went, "Oh, he's not serious. Oh, okay, I know he says he's going to be a dictator. He's not being serious." So we are now back to 2011 of playing footsie and playing games with this guy. I'm telling you, I was at CNN. And I remember one day I was on, and Heidi Phillips was the anchor, and I said, anytime Donald Trump comes on CNN, we should have a crawl at the bottom that says, "This is for entertainment purposes only." This is no lie. I get an email from Ken Jouts, the executive vice president at CNN, who tells me, do not criticize Donald Trump coming on our air. That night, I think Obama gave some speech, it was something economic speech, and Piers Morgan had Trump on his show for the whole hour, offering commentary on economics and world affairs and everything along those lines. And I remember saying, man, fuck Ken. I was like, why in the hell is this dumbass on CNN? I mean, I just started tweeting. I didn't give a damn. I'm like, whatever the hell. But this is what happens. So when folk just dismiss his crazy, but his crazy then shows up as policy, then it's like, oh, I didn't think he was being serious. We told you he was being serious. And so this is why, and then people say, I remember early on, well, you know, we can't get upset with every little thing he's doing. I'm going, if you give this thug an inch, he's going to take 100 miles. And so I just think Democrats and progressives are still in this, well, what do we do? This is where you go, you throw everything. You hit them with everything. You are in media constantly. You make it this is warfare. This is information warfare. You do battle 7 days a week. You don't take a day off. That has to be their posture. Otherwise, oh, we don't see y'all saying or doing anything, so I guess what he's doing is okay.
But I do want to come back. I agree with that, Roland.
Hold up. Morgan, go ahead.
Okay. Just to finish the thought, I do agree with all of that. As we've discussed, all of the constitutional violations, the complete destruction, the infrastructure of government is a huge problem and needs to be called out every single second. I think my point and what the clip was just showing us from those interviews is, but doing that alone is unlikely to be enough if the goal is to get a different kind of president in 4 years. How do we know? Because these people are saying they are not persuaded by that. And these are people that are saying they would vote in different ways. And I want to come back to especially what that guy said about how are my kids' lives improving? So in addition to the critique of all of the bad things that are happening, and this has to be the learning from 2016 over the past 8-9 years now, is what are we filling the void with? What are we saying that we Democrats,
right?
Okay, right? What's the vision? What's the plan? And if there's not as much time spent on that, then we are very likely to continue repeating the exact same pattern and lose.
Well, I don't know who's going. It was Zachary or John. One of y'all want to say something? Go ahead.
I just wanted to add in, Roland. When you said that the Americans are sitting here saying what's not going to happen, or he's just joking, or it's in jest, he's trolling. You know who believed him and took him at his word? Canada. We're sitting here in America when this man talks about annexing Canada, taking over Canada, invading our neighbor to the north. We're sitting here making jokes about it, talking about red, white, and blue land for Greenland, making jokes and laughing at it, where the Canadians sat down and we completely shifted the outcomes of their most recent election to where now they have a liberal prime minister and a liberal government put in place. They took the threat of Donald Trump seriously, and we haven't done that. And when we talk about looking at these people that we just saw, that proves and highlights exactly what you just said about the media. CNN didn't come to find people from the Black Star Network, from Roland Martin Unfiltered. They didn't get your viewers. They didn't go to the people when they want to talk to Black America who are really ingrained in a part of the work of Black America. They went and found people that are listening to Candace Owens. These are not lowly educated voters. These are high bullshit voters. That's what they're consuming, bullshit from Candace Owens. And that's who they platformed. CNN is the problem when it came to that right there. CNN is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, John, go ahead.
CNN is just trying to be the grown-up version of Fox News. They're like, well, you can't say it that way. We're going to present it in a more professional manner. But they do a good job of spreading misinformation by having complete bullshit on and calling it fair and balanced. So, and then they'll get mad when a Roland Martin wants to tell the truth. They get mad if any black or liberal reporter wants to tell the truth. That's more a violation at CNN than spreading misinformation. So CNN has played a role in eroding our democracy. They just don't do it as blatantly as Fox News or Newsmax.
Folks, Senator Raphael Warnock stood with other senators in challenging first 100 days of Donald Trump's presidency, and he, of course, was had a few words to say. Here he is right now.
It didn't take us long to see what this Trump administration is all about. This is the worst first 100 days that this country has seen in a very, very long time. We are witnessing an all-out assault on our Constitution, an all-out assault on our norms and our values, an assault on the pocketbooks of ordinary people, but in a real sense, an assault on the spirit of the American people. They are trying to convince us that our neighbors are our enemies. We should know better than that by now, and we do. We went through a deadly pandemic in which if my neighbor was sick, while she was sick, I was potentially imperiled because it was an airborne disease. That didn't make my neighbor my enemy. That means I have an invested interest in my neighbor's health care, in my neighbor's ability to be covered. And so while there are politicians who want us to be wary of our neighbors, we ought to be wary of politicians who want us to be afraid of each other. They're trampling due process, striking fear in communities all across our country. They're firing the federal workers who serve our veterans. Many of them are veterans themselves. They have had the honor necessary to fight for us. And then they come back and they've got to fight with us to get ordinary respect for the work that they've already done and the work that they're trying to do. They're trying to shut down Social Security offices in Georgia and all across the country, drinking water safety offices. And why are they doing all of this? They're doing all of this in order to pay for a tax cut for billionaires, all the while adding billions of dollars, trillions of dollars over time to our national debt. But here's the thing that they're really trying to do. They are trying to weaponize despair. They're trying to so beat us down that we will be too soul weary to fight, and it's our job to prove them wrong. This country does not belong to the people in power. The power is in the people. And so I want the American people to be clear that we are fighting. In many ways, you will see our fight. Sometimes you will not see what the fights that we're engaged in, but know that we're fighting for ordinary people. Because we believe that if you center the people rather than the politics, you have a chance at getting the public policy right. That's right. And so we invite our Republican colleagues to join us. The doors of the church are open. The time is always right to do what's right. It's never too late to be on the right side of history. And so we want you to rise up to this moral moment. and to recognize that we will not give in to wannabe autocrats who want to convince us that they have already won. If they can convince you that they've already won, then you won't fight. You won't raise your voice. The great Andy Young, who's now in his 90s and is a great source of wisdom for me, tells a story of how after they had passed the Civil Rights Bill into law, Dr. King and his team went to visit with President Lyndon Baines Johnson. And Dr. King said to President Johnson, I need a voting rights law. My people are being disenfranchised, and we've got to pass a voting rights law. And the president said, Martin, I agree with you, but the sad political reality is I don't have the power to do that right now. I just passed a civil rights law. I've used all of my political capital to muster that through the Congress. There's no way I can get a voting rights law passed. I don't have the power to do that. And they left the meeting, and the team was feeling all dejected, and somebody said to Dr. King, what are we going to do now? He said, well, the president says he doesn't have any power. I guess we're going to have to go and get the president some power. And so I've been thinking about that story a lot lately, because everywhere I go, and I know my colleagues have the same experience, people are asking us, what are we going to do? Will you fight for us? And the answer is yes, we are fighting for you. But Selma was about creating the context for the change that you want to see in the world. And so know that as we fight on the inside, we need you to fight on the outside. And we will prove once again that this is the United States of America, and at the end of the day, it's the people who have the last word. Love has the last word. Justice has the last word. Righteousness has the last word. And we will continue to fight.
But see, my idea of fighting is not capitulating. And I believe this here. John, I'll start with you. Democrats should say, we will not vote on any nominee, on anything, on any bill, on any appointment from Donald Trump. There has to be absolute, total blockage. When you're limited, somebody had commented on my Instagram page, Hakeem, you should be doing more. First of all, they don't have the power of the House. The rules in the Senate are different. Democrats should say, what's the answer to every Trump nominee? No. I don't give a damn if you like them. No. Because we already see what happened. There were Democrats who voted for Hegseth, who voted for Sean Duffy, who voted for a bunch of these people, and now they're like, oh, I should have done that. Yeah, we tried to tell you. The way you fight is you use every lever of power that you can to stop his agenda. John.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. I think that sometimes a lot of folks say this, it might be overused, but Democrats bring knives to a gunfight. And I think if this is the gunfight we believe it is, then you have to be willing to be obstructionists. You have a certain set of centrist Democrats who are afraid of being called unruly and afraid of being called obstructionists. But when you are dealing with an authoritarian president, the thing you're supposed to do is obstruct. You're supposed to stop him. So absolutely right. No Trump nominee should be getting through right now because none of them are qualified to do the job.
You've got this guy, Ed Martin, Zachary, Ed Martin, who Trump, first of all, attorney for those white domestic terrorists who he appointed. So he lies before the Senate and says that, oh, yeah, I wasn't familiar. You know, with these racist things this guy was saying, this Nazi sympathizer, even though they literally have him on a podcast discussing it. He appeared on 150 times Russian state media. I mean, we can go on and on and on. And so this is a perfect example. Hell no. That nomination ain't moving forward. That's where you put pressure on Chuck Grassley and say, don't even vote on his nomination. You have this is a battle, and you must act like it.
And we have got to get, and in the swing states and the swing districts. And we have to put more pressure across the board. Yes, no Democrat can vote yes. But we have to also put more pressure on Republicans who are in swing districts to make sure that their constituents are holding them accountable so that they also vote no on these nominations. We need to roll out those clips. We need to roll out what this man has done. We need to make sure that people know that and spread it all around those swing districts so that those Republicans feel an immense amount of pressure from their constituents because they barely won their seats. They barely are controlling the House, and we have to flip it. And that's the strategy that we need to be employing to move forward. And it's not happening at that rate. And instead of us getting Republicans to flip, they're getting morons. Oh, that's not the right thing to say. They're getting vulnerable Democrats like the guy.
No, they're morons. They're morons. I'm gonna call them what they are. I'm tired of playing footsie with moronic people. But go ahead and finish your point.
That was the point. Like they're convincing Democrats to fold. The Republicans are putting pressure on vulnerable Democrats, and they're the ones flipping to vote with the Republicans instead of the Democrats putting pressure on vulnerable Republicans and getting them to fold. There are more vulnerable Democrats in the House than there are more vulnerable Republicans and Democrats. We should be able to apply more pressure and get more Republicans to vote with Speaker Minority Leader Jeffries. He should be getting more Republican votes on his side.
Well, but again, they're scared of him, Morgan. And here's the deal. He's a perfect example. So the U.S. Army has confirmed that on Trump's birthday in June, there's going to be a big military parade in D.C. that coincides with the celebrating the Army's 250th anniversary. Okay, so let me tell you how this is going to play out. Democrats are going to go, well, I think we should go because, the parade is really a celebration of the Army. No, it's not. Donald Trump wants one of those Kim Jong-un Russian military parades that salutes him. This is where Democrats say, nah, we ain't going to that. And in fact, if I'm Democrats, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw my own celebration of the U.S. Army. And I'm going to, see, my deal is I'm sorry, all that bullshit on inauguration, yo, if I'm Kamala, hell no, J.D. Vance, you and your wife ain't riding in a limo with me. Take y'all ass, get another car. And in fact, I ain't even going to the inauguration. The mistake is when you want to uphold institutions, you normalize him. He gets to give you the finger at other things, and his supporters go, right on. We with you, Donald. Right on.
Well, and I think that's my...
Hold on, Morgan, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's my exact point, Roland. I mean, as long as you're letting someone else set the agenda, and even if it's an agenda that feels completely unconstitutional, illegal, out of control, whatever, fill in whatever word you want to plug in there, if you're not presenting an alternative agenda, they will continue to dominate. And so I agree. I mean, yeah, norms have been broken. If you're a sitting member of Congress right now, why would you give into it? Why are you voting for all of that? But also, what are you pointing the public to? And I'll just give one concrete example, right? Very much appreciate the words from Senator Warnock. Obviously, an extremely talented orator and doing a good job as a senator. But here's what I would love to see out of all of the people that were in that picture. Do the same type of event, but make it about breaking up pharmacy benefit managers, something that a lot of Republicans support, that a lot of them are sitting in there right now, that they would love to be able to pass a bill that they've been fighting for a long time to bring some relief to some independent pharmacy business owners, that they're too chicken to actually push for and go against the administration. Democrats own that. Have a protest outside. Say we're going to be the party that's actually going to lower drug prices and break up these monopolies of CVS and Cigna and Aetna, all of it. We're going to break it up, and we're going to bring relief to Americans all over this country, including our service members, and put them on the defensive, right? Force their hand, make the conversation about something else.
Yep.
But also, it's just the critique, it's not going to be enough.
Right, and also do what Bishop William Barber always emphasizes: have impacted people speaking. have impacted
Exactly.
people speaking and not just the politicians. All right, I got to go to a quick break. We come back. Why is the press gallery at the U.S. Capitol refusing to give credentials to the black press of America? Wait till I tell y'all what the hell is going on there. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Stud Network. Support the work we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to contribute to our fan club, via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. If you're listening, go to blackstudnetwork.com. You want to send a check or money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003-7-0196. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Back in a moment.
This week on the other side of change.
Mass incarceration, Trump administration is doubling down on criminalization, and how it is profitable.
And there's something really, really perverse about saying that we need to put people in cages in order for other people to have jobs. Like, that is not how our economy should be built.
Only on the other side of change on the Black Star Network.
I'm Russell L. Honoré, Lieutenant General, United States Army, retired, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Well, I tell y'all, it's always a battle when you're in black-owned media, when you're dealing with, frankly, white folks who are in control of various systems. And I can tell you the numerous times when you talk about working red carpets, when you're talking about trying to get credentials to all kinds of different things, I mean, it's always difficult for black-owned media. Well, guess what? There's not a single black-owned media organization listed as a member of the Daily Press Gallery on Capitol Hill. For months, the NNPA, Dr. Ben Chavis, April Ryan, and others have been trying to secure permanent credentials for April, Stacey Brown, and Lauren Victoria Burt, who all write for Black Press USA. Well, Stacey and Lauren join us right now to discuss how this has been going on. And Stacey, this has been a battle for a decade?
Oh, it goes beyond that. I mean, you remember your old buddy who used to run, was the editor of the
George Curry.
Newswire.
My man George Curry.
George had this, even the great George Curry had the same issue, Roland, and it's still an issue. And thank goodness we have fighters like Lauren Burke who's been pushing this issue as much as anybody.
So, Lauren, what the hell is the deal? Like why are they? I mean, first of all, people don't know who is this group, and who do they work for? Do they work for the government, or do they work for other media outlets? Who are they, and how are they deciding that Black Press USA, which writes for all the black papers across the country, isn't deserving of a credential?
Well, the press galleries rolling on Capitol Hill are staffed, of course, by government employees, and then there's a standing committee of journalists for each gallery that decides on credentials. And so when you apply for credentials, that standing committee, made up, of course, of journalists, make that decision. There's several press galleries, of course, that cover the different forms of media that we have. You have the radio TV gallery, you have the periodical press gallery, you have the daily press gallery, you have the press photographers gallery. When I first came to Capitol Hill, I was actually a federal employee. I was a staffer. An intern for some senators. And then I got into the media. My first real media job was ABC News. And my first credential was with the radio TV gallery because I worked for Cokie Roberts. Cokie Roberts at that point was a member of the standing committee. So in those days, it was pretty easy to get credentials, I think, not just because I was affiliated with Cokie Roberts, but because that gallery, run at the time by Larry Janzik, who was a great guy and still a great guy, now run by a guy named Mike Mastrian, who's also a great guy, has always been a great gallery in terms of openness. I think the rules are just tighter for daily press and periodical press. And by the way, the Black Press USA is really a daily black newswire that feeds 230 black newspapers across the country. So it's basically a black wire service. So This has been going on for years, as Stacey said. I think it was going on before George Curry, actually. I didn't pay too much attention because I was getting my credential, I think, as a freelancer at the time. I'd gotten one from The Hill, and I'd gotten one from Associated Press because I was a contract photographer for Associated Press as well. But for some reason, Black Press USA has not been credentialed and cannot get credentialed. And this has gone on way too long. And at this moment, Roland, my attitude is now I am done talking to the people that I have been talking back and forth with for years. I think that the only people I will be talking to about this issue moving forward will be members of Congress. Now, if I lose the argument with them, I've lost the argument. But there's something wrong here when Gateway Pundit can get a credential. And by the way, I'm not here to argue against anybody else's credentials. I believe in the First Amendment, whether I agree with any other news organization or not. I don't care if it's Daily Caller or the Gateway Pundit or the 19th or anybody else. There's a lot of news organizations that are credentialed, and they deserve the right to cover Congress and be there and question members of Congress. But I think Black Press USA deserves that right as well. And I'm getting really tired of this discussion, particularly when Dr. Chavis, Dr. Ben Chavis, and April Ryan, who is a historic journalist, can't walk in there and get credentials. There's something wrong with that.
So for people who don't know, do you need this credential in order to bring a camera in order to do interviews? Why do you explain to people who don't know why you need to be credentialed if you go to the U.S. Capitol?
Once upon a time, it was a lot easier, Roland. Right now, because of the restrictions of security, it has become increasingly difficult to have a face-to-face with a member. Now, of course, you can stake a member out at their office in one of the office buildings or a senator. What they do now, though, they close down the plaza during votes, and they close down the areas outside where there are press conferences occasionally, which are known as the Triangle and the Swamp. Shout out to Frida Murphy, who's a staffer for Yvette Clarke, the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, who came to get me outside one time when I could not get to the position where the press conference was in, which is right outside the Capitol steps, which is called the House Triangle.
So if you have a credential, you're allowed in that space. If you don't, you have to leave.
Correct. And the cops put barriers up so that you cannot get on the plaza of the front of the Capitol. That used to not be the case. That's a fairly recent development, probably in the last 2 years. Understandable with everything with Jan 6. I'm not trying to criticize the security on Capitol Hill, but you need a hard pass more today than you did when I first started.
No question. And make no mistake, and I know obviously you know this, Roland, but this is not just about a press pass. This is a decades-long battle. This is a reluctance to allow, as already been stated, the Black Press of America, the nation's trusted Black-owned wire service and news organization, into the same spaces as the AP, Reuters, CNN, the Senate Press Gallery, and House Gallery have continuously stonewalled us, denied us, and disrespected the very essence of what we represent, Roland. And you know that. And here's the thing. Today, we are seeing the word diversity be turned into a curse word by this administration and by this Congress. We are seeing Black history, American history being attacked and threatened with erasure. Our community needs you, of course. You do more than anybody, Roland, but they need you. They need the Black press more now than probably ever before.
Well, see, what people don't understand, the fight, the battle that goes on, behind closed doors. This is a battle in Hollywood every single year when it comes to award time, and because of where you get positioned on the carpet. So in our Black Star Network studios was hanging up. This photo is hanging up right here. Let me see if I can do it right here. All right, this photo. So let me explain to y'all. Okay, first of all, switch cameras. Go to camera 2. Give me a wide shot. Thank you. So just so y'all understand. So y'all see this photo here? All right. So what Stacey and Lauren are describing, let me tell you how this happened. So we're in Dallas. Hillary Clinton is first lady, and Hillary Clinton is coming to the Martin Luther King Center on King Drive in South Dallas. Literally less than 100 yards across the street is the Dallas Weekly, black newspaper. So I go over to the King Center, and I'm just checking out, everything. So I walk into this room, okay? Try to take the same room. So they had two rooms. They had one room set up where they had a bunch of lights, and then they had another room across the hall. So I said, hey, what's going on in here? They said, oh, well, when the First Lady comes, she's going to visit with some of the kids and who are in the daycare. And I said, really? Okay. Well, who's going to be in the press pool? They said, oh, the Dallas Morning News, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, Associated Press, Reuters, I think UPI was still around. And I went, I'm sorry. Ain't no black people, ain't no black media in the press pool? They said, no, and it's all closed. I said, oh, hell no. I said, ain't no way in hell the First Lady is coming to Black South Dallas, coming to the Martin Luther King Center. I said, and a black paper is less than 100 yards across the street, and ain't nobody in the black press gonna be in this damn press pool. I said, you need to go get somebody on the advance team. And they were like, And so I handed my card. I was managing editor of the Dallas Weekly. And so it came back, Mr. Martin, you've been added to the press pool. I was like, you damn right. Now, I need people watching to understand that means that by having if nobody black was in that press pool, that if we wanted to run photos of the First Lady in talking with these black kids, we would have had to buy the photo from AP or some other source. Right. And this is the stuff that I need people watching every day to understand. This happens all of the time. It happens all of the time where we show up to political events and white media, they've got positions staked out on the dais. They've got power. They've got internet. And ain't nothing for black media. And so y'all know I'm petty and I'm ignorant. I remember when Kamala, they had, which event was it? It was when she spoke with the White House in the background at the event there. And, we got there early, had to set up, and we came back, and Univision or somebody was like literally in our space. And I was like, oh, hell no, y'all got to move y'all shit. And they were like, no, we're going to be here. I said, no, I guarantee y'all going to move y'all shit. I said, what y'all not going to do is stand here in our space. I need people watching to understand. I've made it clear to campaigns. No, y'all gonna give us a prime spot. See, people, I'm telling the public has no idea the battles that black-owned media has to contend with behind the stages. When you go to the convention, some people have a permanent pass to be on the floor. Then they have another system where they give you a pass and you got to swap it out every 15 minutes. And I'm like, nah, Roland ain't getting that 15-minute bullshit. The only way, and I'm going to make this final point. Let me pull this up. Because, see, this is why I need people to understand why this matters. Because y'all might think, oh, man, I'm just sitting here lying with this here. Okay, here's a perfect example. How many people recall seeing this image right? Give me 1 second. Agree. How many of y'all recall seeing this image right here? That is the shot of Monetta Sleet Jr., Ebony Magazine, and that's the photo of Bernice King on the lap of her mother, Coretta Scott King, at Dr. King's funeral. Do y'all know how that actually happened? The press pool was Jim Crow white. They would not allow Ebony Jett in the press pool. Simeon Booker, Lerone Bennett, went to Coretta Scott King and said, Mrs. King, the white journalists are not going to allow Ebony Jett to be in the press pool. And Coretta Scott King said, you let them know that if Ebony and Jett are not in the press pool, there will be no press pool inside of the church. That is the only reason Sleet got into the press pool, and he captured that image, and that's how he became the first African American to win a Pulitzer Prize for photography, because Coretta Scott King said, ain't gonna happen.
Right. And it is about being in that position and being allowed to be in that position. And along those lines, Roland, the other thing for the Black community I think is very important at this time of budget cuts and all that is that you hear so much online, Roland, with regard to the Congressional Black Caucus isn't doing this and isn't doing that. We've heard that for years. When you don't have Black Press USA in the room to report on what they're doing, there's the false idea that they're not doing anything.
Right.
But there's no one there to tell the story. So
because white media not gonna talk to them.
Nope, and that is why we for years have implored the CBC to make sure not only to talk to us, but in a situation like this, Roland, really, quite frankly, they should be stepping up and saying, well, listen, the same way Mrs. King said, if Ebony and Jett is not in here, then no one's going to be in here. We're not talking to nobody if we're not talking to the Black press, if we're not talking to Roland Martin.
So what's next? Lauren, what's next?
What's next is a bunch of conversations with members of Congress, and some of those have started already, and quite frankly, they're very receptive, and they hear us. They hear, what's going on here. You should know, too, Roland, that Byron Donalds, the obviously Black Republican from Florida, wants to rename the press gallery, the House Press Gallery, after Frederick Douglass, which I actually think is a noble idea, don't get me wrong, but it's filled with irony given the fact that there's very few Black reporters in that gallery. I actually don't know that Congressman Donalds is aware of that. I'm actually trying to find him and talk to him about that. And I suspect that when he is aware of it, he's going to be not happy about it. I know that we, sometimes make fun of Black Republicans, but I have a feeling that he's going to not know what we're talking about right now. And, it's a chicken and egg thing, and the competitive advantage, just like you said about Monetta Sleet, Roland, it's like you lose competitive advantage when you do not have a credential and you cannot be in position to get the news. It's a huge, huge problem right now.
Well, let me know when y'all decide, when y'all want to organize, let's say 50 or 100 Black journalists to roll up on Capitol Hill. And who's the dude who's not saying yes?
He's actually not a bad guy.
I don't give a shit if he's not a bad guy. He ain't said yes. See, I don't give a damn. No, I've known him for
a while.
That's fine. Listen, you can know him for a while, but he ain't said yes. So all I'm saying is, let me know when we need to roll up, like the Halloran brothers in Strictly Business.
You're right. I hear you, Roland. There's too many cooks in the kitchen, and that gallery director has a lot of people, that he has to deal with. I'm not saying it's easy. But
I get it.
I'm saying Black Press USA should have a credential.
And what I'm saying is some folk don't respond until they feel some Black heat.
I got you. Believe me, I got you.
So let me know when y'all send up the bat signal. And then we need to roll up on them. Yeah, let me know when y'all toss the hat in the air, and so the cavalry roll up, because I ain't got no problem getting in somebody's ass. So y'all let me know.
All right, you gonna swim across the water there?
Huh?
You gonna swim across the water too?
Hey, I ain't gonna swim across the water, but I guarantee you, hashtag Team Whip That Ass gonna roll up in there. All right, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Roland.
Listen, this is the stuff. John, let's start with you. This extends beyond this issue here. This is what happens when we talk about political advertising money. We talk about general market money. And we talk about all sorts of things. It happens on the local level, the state level, and national level, how black organizations, black entities do not get the same respect. I was flying. I don't even know, do I have it with me? I was flying. And you can switch the camera over here. I was flying. And when you fly and you have a media credential, because we're media, when we check bags, we get to check bags up to, do I have my credential with me? I don't have mine. I thought I had it with me. When we check credentials, we check our stuff, we get to check bags up to like 100 pounds. And we pay 50 because we carry gear. So I don't actually have my roller. I thought I had it's probably at home. This is like a credential from I got from a couple of the events. So at the airport, when you check your bags, you show your credential. So I check in United, and homeboy goes, "Oh no, that's not satisfactory." I was like, "Excuse me? What you mean it ain't satisfactory?" I said, "Shit, it's satisfactory for Secret Service at the White House." And then another person at United who knew me, and mind you, I got 1,000,003 miles. I'm Premier 1K, all that sort of stuff. And I was like mad as hell. But I guarantee you, if I had flashed the CNN credential, no problem. But this is the stuff that people have to understand that black folks deal with when they do not see us as equal to others.
Absolutely. I know. I think that this is a form of institutional racism. The reality is when policies don't allow access to certain groups of people, it is an institutionally, systemically racist policy. And that is what has kept black folks from upward mobility. That is what's kept Black America's plight from being heard, is keeping us from having access. And so it's especially important in a time where diversity, equity, and inclusion is under attack. Affirmative action has been under attack, because the reality is we aren't a post-racial society. And it's very important that we have systems in place that make sure that Black journalists, Black media have access to everything that they need access to, that Black institutions, period, that institutions that serve Black people have resources.
Right.
And so I think that it's an especially important conversation right now, as we know that DEI is just a code word for Black sometimes, and it's their new N-word.
Zachary, perfect example. Last week, Reverend William Barber, Bishop William Barber, and others were arrested for praying in the Capitol Rotunda. This right here is an image of them being arrested by Capitol Police as they were praying. Then they ushered all the media out. We actually ran the video. Now, here's what's interesting. They were talking about them making a disturbance, but these are the same folk. Now, this guy, Jack Jenkins, reported this here. 2 years ago, when right-wing activist Sean Fuchs held an impromptu evening worship service in the Capitol back in 2023, police occasionally walked in to speak with lawmakers participating, but no one was arrested. So, again, they were arrested, and he wasn't. This is what we're talking about here.
Roland, while we have been here, I saw a breaking news alert that the family of Ashley Babbitt,
30 million.
They're getting our American taxpayer dollars after their daughter went down to the Capitol to participate in the insurrection.
A white domestic terrorist was shot because her dumb ass would not obey orders and Trump has given her family $30 million of taxpayer money.
Of our money, $30 million of our money. And again, may she rest where she rests. But that is what we're dealing with. These people caused an insurrection. Now they've been let off scot-free. And now our president and Republican members of Congress are talking about giving the families restitution. While you're telling me that you're not able to do anything to support the Americans who've gotten education through student loans, while you're telling me you can't do anything for the black people in this country that are owed reparations, but we're going to give insurrectionists restitution, they're going to get money for the insurrection they caused to overthrow the American government and democracy?
Well,
that's what we have going on in Washington, where these pastors, these ministers can't pray, but the family of Ashley Babbitt gets $30 million.
I said over and over again, Morgan, you got to stand up and fight and make it perfectly clear you're not going to treat us separately as you treat other people.
Yeah, and I hope this discussion, these examples we talked about, is an invitation to go big. I mean, truly, it kind of breaks my heart hearing the discussion that it's been years that we've been fighting for this access. It's like, no, when you have power, use it to the maximum effect to impact as many people's lives. Take every fight and just win, deliver. That's what we're seeing happening in this administration. We should be respecting the Constitution, but very aggressively trying to deliver for our people.
Indeed. All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. We come back. We talked last night about Shadur Sanders and how maybe what happened to him wasn't racist, but it was racial. And I told y'all in my story, it don't happen. That just not in sports. And so I'm going to talk to a brother who knows this story very well. And it's something that we have to understand that is live and well, especially in the age of all the folks who are attacking DEI. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
This week on the other side of change.
Mass incarceration, Trump administration is doubling down on criminalization, and how it is profitable.
And there's something really, really perverse about saying that we need to put people in cages in order for other people to have jobs. Like, that is not how our economy should be built.
Only on the other side of change on the Black Star Network.
This is Tamala Mann.
And this is David Mann. And you're watching Roland Martin
Unfiltered.
All right, folks, still lots of conversation about Shadur Sanders, how he was treated by the NFL, falling significantly in the draft in the 5th round. And there was this conversation between Clarence Hill and Jamel Hill that spurred me to have a conversation last night, where they said that, Jamel said, I don't think it was racist. She gave other reasons. And Clarence said that, a lot of these white NFL execs are not used to dealing with a black athlete who's rich, who's a privilege. And so I talked about that we have to recognize that things happen that they may not be racist, but they are also racial. So I was talking about this last night with my frat brother Todd Brown, co-founder of Urban Edge Network, and he was talking about what he's dealt with his entire career. And I said, well, let's talk about it. So Todd, welcome back to the show. And so it was a lot of people were really surprised by the conversation last night because they did not fully understand when we talk about how something can be racial but not racist. And we were talking about how individuals, how jobs that you were offered or people you work with, and how white bosses put them on the fast track to success and riches. And here you are, smarter, more talented than them, and frankly got left behind. And they're like, well, you should just be happy with what you got.
Yeah, well, Roland, it happened a couple of times. I remember earlier in my career, me and a white contemporary, we both were working together on projects, and we were exchanging contributions, and we were turning our work in and cross-checking it, where he would get an A+ and I would get a B-. And it got so clear that he actually complained about it. Then as my career advanced, I started seeing the same things where I would get favor and a lot of attaboys, but when it came down time for the productions, promotions, and the increase, my numbers were always less. And as I shared with you last night, I had a good friend we both were on an executive track, except he lived in a $350,000 house, and I lived in a $57,000 condo, and his salary was $70K higher than mine in the same group. Because I became friends with these people, white people largely, they shared information as if it was equal. So when we are emboldened and put in those key positions, Roland, what we often find is we may get the recognition, but we very seldom get what goes with it. And so it's a racial system where they're comfortable, and the track they had me on was good for a black executive, but it wasn't in line with what the majority was getting. I think Shador is experiencing sort of that recompense for being too bold. And what I wanted to share with you is that it happened to my kids. I have a child that worked at Google. Well, guess what? He was brought in 2 levels below his peer class. Same thing with my daughter, who entered Amazon with an MBA and a master's in public accounting and a CPA. And she found out that majority members who just had an undergraduate degree came in 2 levels higher than her. By the way, she went to the University of Texas, the #1 accounting school in the country. So we see this happen generationally, and it's more normal than we want to think about.
And what I need people to understand is that over a 20, 30, 40-year period, we're talking about the loss of millions of dollars. And the response from white folks is, but you've done well.
Right. Well, what's interesting about that, Roland, is I go back to companies, major media companies that I was at in 2000 and the 2010-12 timeframe. When I visit them on business in my current capacity as owning Urban Edge Network, I go back and I see the same white people that were in the roles that I was in. They're still there 10 years later. So if I was making $950,000 a year, and you add 3% to that, and they've been there an extra 11 years, you can imagine the amount of wealth they've amassed. And that's the generational wealth that you see in the exchange, where you see African Americans in executive positions are put out of their roles for whatever reason, mid-50s, early 60s, if they're making north of a couple $100K. Whereas you see the majority members in this racial society you talk about, where they're just comfortable with each other and are just uncomfortable with us in leadership roles. And over time, not a lot of time, you can see the stratification in income and how it impacts us from a wealth perspective.
And again, we talk about what's racial and not necessarily racist. Talk about this one individual who went on to run a major media company, who's now about to run another major media company, who held private parties for white junior execs, and you never got invited.
Yeah, so in the conversations I was in at a major top 3 media company, having had conversations with my peers, they then shared with me that they were invited to weekend parties, Christmas parties. They've been to this executive's home, and they were given opportunities consistently, whereas I was there for 7 years and didn't receive one promotion. Matter of fact, one individual I'm thinking about was below me when she came in, and she's now been president of several companies in the same field, whereas those opportunities tend to go away from Black folk for whatever reason. And I see the same peer class, chief revenue officer, senior vice president of content management. When those people are in those roles longer, they're promoted, they're supported, and it's just comfort. I saw the same thing when I was at Viacom in the early 2000s. Most of the people I work with are still in those roles or ascended to tremendously high opportunities. So it starts to be impactful, Roland, because I see individuals, for whatever reason, are comfortable with us not being there. And when we're not there, that means opportunity downstream and upstream, both for our families and for the networks that we tend to open up. So it does have a big impact when you have to be 5th round, when you have 1st round talent.
And it is something that consistently happens, and folk don't want to talk about it. And what trips me out is when we are expected to shrink ourselves, to not be as assertive, not be as aggressive, not be as vocal, frankly, not outshine our peers because we make them feel bad. So we have to factor in their fragile white feelings in order for us to possibly move ahead?
Well, the sad part for me is I saw it happen again with my kids, where my son, is one of the only people that was hired by Google in sales coming out of Oklahoma University. He came in 1 to 2 levels below his peers, outperformed his peers who were promoted faster, did less impactful work. And then when he received this promotion, it was 2 years later, having overperformed in the role that he was in, which was graded at the same level his higher level peers were. Same thing happened to my daughter when she joined Amazon. They both have since left those companies out of frustration because they have access to what they were rated, like Shador, as a quarterback. They had expectations of what that meant. They went to great schools and they expected to get in there and not be impacted from a merit perspective, but then also downgraded. So now you're a backup quarterback. You're not getting the same number of reps. And then when you perform, it's not seen in the same light. So it is something that is real. You can say it's racist, you can say it's systemic, you can say it's racial, but it happens on a more regular basis than we want to admit. And the gap sustains your entire career unless you do what I've advised my kids to do, which is to take the circuitous path and not wait for a linear promotion within the system that wasn't set up to be fair and honest to them, and make moves and work your way to emancipation and entrepreneurship as soon as you can. Then you're fighting the battles, Roland, that you and I are fighting to try to get supply chain opportunities as opposed to waiting for 1 or 2 individuals within a broken system to recognize us and treat us fairly.
Let's go to our panel. Morgan, you first.
Well, I really appreciate the discussion and agree with a lot of what has been said. So thanks for sharing your story and of your children. I think this is one of the reasons why, and Roland, we've talked about this, where I think the entire Black community should just automatically be very anti-monopolist. We do not usually benefit from concentrations of power, whether it's in a very, very large corporation like an Amazon or Google. And I completely agree. I mean, being able to strike out, be entrepreneurs, where we have more autonomy to be able to create opportunity for ourselves and also other folks in the community is a great way to go. But we got to make sure we have that runway to grow and scale businesses and really build that wealth. And then the other thing I would say, and I'm just kind of curious, as you're thinking about just what is going on with DEI and just the role that has or hasn't played in fulfilling the promise of bringing more equity to the workplace and kind of like helping us scale up ladders faster within certain work environments. What's your take on what's happening there?
Yeah, I've never been an advocate of DEI, or I'm a big proponent of affirmative action. The federal statute that requires them to give us an equal opportunity at what used to be in federal contracting, certainly in corporate environments. DEI has always been a cloak and dagger for Black folks. As you know, 72% of the opportunities in the DEI space went to white women, and north of 90% of the opportunity went to white folks. So we were very seldom benefited from it. It did create some opportunity for consideration. So I've always told my children, I've always focused on a meritocracy. I remember early in my career at IBM, which I was highly esteemed, the first offer they gave me was the EO job, counting Black people, counting brown people, and compliance to EO, where my majority members who were in finance and accounting were never offered those types of opportunities. So I found DEI to be more of a distraction. I found it to be more of a conversation around promoting a photo op than about the actual work of elevating, promoting, and integrating folks of color into the power of the business from a P&L perspective and their supply chain. So I've always told my kids that they need to be amazing, but they also need to recognize when they're not being treated right and then open the spectrum of opportunities for themselves. So that's my strong take on DEI. I think it's interesting, but it hasn't been impactful on my career and it hasn't been impactful on my business.
John?
This is a very relatable conversation to me, as I have, outside of political consulting, spent a lot of time on Wall Street at financial firms. What happened to Shador Sanders on this NFL draft was so relatable to a lot of us as Black Americans, because let's face it, we're underrated. We don't, simply because of the color of our skin, it is racial, they don't envision us as being the part. And we have to be our number one advocate. Just like you've got to work hard, leave no margin for error, but at the same time, no one's going to advocate for you. You've got to be any Black person who has gotten anywhere in a society that wasn't, where we weren't meant to rise, has had to be their number one advocate, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're in corporate, and regardless of what industry you're in, even in the Democratic Party political consulting space, white guys with no experience get the big money gigs, the big campaign gigs before a Black consultant with the best resume you've ever seen.
Absolutely. And so I think the relatability piece is we're all first-round draft choices. I find that Africans in America, when they come through whatever system they come through, when they go for opportunities, they tend to be well-suited for those opportunities. Now it's arguing for your values, positioning yourself with enough opportunity spectrum where you can have more than one team to go to, and it's free agency, but we have to actually be very assertive about making sure we get in front of as many people as possible so we can really feather out those opportunities and then take the one that makes sense. And then don't fall in love. We don't have to be there for 5 years on a rookie contract. We've got to be there long enough to get those credentials that we need and either create an opportunity for ourselves through entrepreneurship or market ourselves to the highest bidder in the market space.
All right, then. Todd Brown, I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland, as usual.
All right, we come back. Job numbers came out today. Decent, not great, but if you listen to MAGA, oh my God, it's the second coming of Jesus. We'll be right back.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, inflation is on the rise. Interest rates are high. Can you still thrive during these uncertain times? On the next Get Wealthy, you're gonna meet a woman who's done just that, living proof of what you need to do to flourish during these uncertain times.
These are times where you take advantage of what's going on. This is how people get rich or richer.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Now that Roland Martin is willing to give me the blueprint, hey, Cyrus, I need to go to Tyler Perry and get another blueprint because I need some green money. The only way I can do what I'm doing, I need to make some money. So you'll see me working with Roland. Matter of fact, it's the Roland Martin and Cheryl Underwood Show. Well, should it be the Cheryl Underwood Show and the Roland Martin Show? Well, whatever show it's going to be good.
Jobs report came out today. Last month, 177,000 jobs were added to the economy. Analysts expected 133,000 jobs to be added, but the Black unemployment rate went up to 6.3%. Overall unemployment rate remained the same at 4.2%. The unemployment rate for Black men went from 6.1% to 5.6%. Black women's unemployment went up a point, 6.1%. Morgan, you look at these numbers every single month. What does it tell us?
The name of the game continues to be uncertainty, Roland. I mean, you're right. These are pretty good numbers. These are numbers that are not causing a lot of alarm. But I think the massive elephant in the room is that these numbers are from surveys that were coming pretty much right after the April 2nd tariff day, where Trump put across the board tariffs all over for countries all over the world. And so we're still dealing with what was more or less the prior administration's policies. And as we move forward here, we're going to continue to have to take a look at what is the impact of the very erratic policymaking that's coming out of this administration. And the other thing I would note is, and we're probably going to have to do that on a sector by sector basis. Like, what do I mean by that? It's like each market area. So when we look at where some of the jobs were gained, where some of them were lost, of course, we're seeing some of the losses in government jobs, not surprising, but not as many losses as we're likely to see. One of the things that's not captured in these figures is, the folks that are taking these buyouts, for example, from the government, that they're accepting the DOGE buyouts, but they're going to be on the payroll, so to speak, for a few more months before they're officially out of the government. That's not getting captured here. We're seeing some growth in areas like warehouse and manufacturing. Some people are speculating, well, that could be because these large companies, knowing that these tariffs were coming and some of the announcements that were starting at the beginning of the year, were just stockpiling and trying to get in as many imports as possible. So then they had to beef up their warehouse capacity. No one really knows what's going on. And so it continues to be a time of great economic uncertainty. I'm sure a lot of people are feeling that. Consumers are starting to adjust some of their spending habits, and we all should be careful as consumers, as small business owners, as people who maybe supply small businesses, because we don't exactly know how the administration's going to land with these so-called deals that they're working out with the tariffs and what the long-term outlook is for the economy overall. But
we do know how tariffs have an impact. Apple announced they could lose almost $1 billion in a quarter because of these tariffs, even though they announced record earnings. But again, these companies are increasingly telling the idiot in the Oval Office, trust me, your tariff gamble is wrecking this economy.
Yeah, the Apple example is really interesting because the fact that Apple is saying they're going to lose $1 billion, I mean, that is, billion with a B, that is a lot of money. But the fact is, Apple makes a lot of money, right? So this is only 1% of the revenue that they're making, right, in a quarter. And so
they had $95.4 billion in revenue this quarter.
Exactly. Apple is a huge company. All these big tech companies are the biggest, most profitable companies in the world. And so an Apple can't absorb that hit. It's like you said, it's just 1%. They're making these deals to be able to shift some of their production to India, to Vietnam for the U.S. iPhones that they're going to try to supply here to get around some of the highest tariffs that are hitting China. So an Apple can maneuver, but the companies that come below that, not just the companies that we're seeing the tickers on Wall Street, but think about the mid-market type of businesses. I was just talking to a guy in Cleveland earlier today who owns his own insurance company. One of his good friends owns a lighting company, and they're pretty much facing, it's not clear that we can survive in this environment. I think those are the types of stories that we're likely to continue to hear more of as the tariffs hit these different sectors.
John?
I think my biggest concern with the tariffs are the cost of goods. The cost of living in this country is off the chain. You have got so many high earners in this country, high earners, who are not doing well economically because the cost of living is literally that high. And so for these tariffs to go through and make everyday life more expensive for Americans, it's just unfathomable right now, and I think it's an economic war on the people, because that I myself, I do better than a lot of people, but I think I would hurt significantly if all the goods that stand to increase with these tariffs were to quadruple in price. That's something a lot of Americans can't deal with. And it's Americans of many different class levels. Only the super rich are not going to be hurt by this.
Well, but I'm telling you, I keep telling people this is going to get worse. So folks better buckle up because this idiot is charging full steam ahead and refuses to listen to reason. Morgan, John, I appreciate both of y'all being on today's show. Zachary had to leave us a little bit earlier. So thank you so very much for joining us.
Great to see you, Roland.
Folks, time for the Crockett Chronicles. Earlier this week, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett ripped into MAGA Republicans when it comes to the massive cuts they want to do to the federal budget. Watch.
Briefly, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. This is an amazing amendment brought by the brilliant, gentle lady out of Pennsylvania, because one of the things that we consistently hear every time we start one of these hearings is that the Republicans had a mandate, and that is why we ended up with Donald Trump. And I can tell you that as I traveled the country warning them that what is happening was going to happen, people would say things like the price of eggs are so high. And so this amendment specifically deals with issues around the consumer price index. So let's talk about the price of eggs, because for whatever reason, we've yet to have a hearing on the price of eggs when that was really the one big thing. And I remember the big guy that's in the White House saying that he was going to reduce the cost of eggs on day one. But what we see is that the national average price of eggs in March of 2025 was $6.23, a 6% increase from the previous month, a 60% increase year to year, and USDA said egg prices could climb 41% this year. When we start to talk about things such as our energy, in March, natural gas prices increased 3.6% and electricity prices increased 9%. Fuel and oil prices increased 0.8%. Utility gas services increased 2.5%. The national average for a gallon of gas is currently $3.17, nowhere near the $1.98 that President Trump claimed last week. I just want to make sure we get the facts out there. And finally, the other area that we typically talk about that really impacts everyday working people is housing. When we look at shelter prices, which measure the cost of housing, rent, lodging away from home, and owner's equivalent rent, it rose 0.2% in March. In February of 2025, home prices were up 2.9% compared to last year, selling for a median of $424,000. The number of homes sold was down 5% year over year. Listen, we are in a crisis. And they are pretending that the solution is going to be cutting everything, that those of us that make this country actually go is the solution. Right now, we're cutting jobs as it relates to the federal government. Right now, because of the failed policies around tariffs, we know that we are looking at losing plants. They said that was going to bring plants. They just announced that we had 2 auto dealers that were going to shut down approximately 40,000 jobs. As they then go after NIH, we know that in the state of Alabama, the largest employer in the state of Alabama is the University of Alabama. They are looking at losing jobs because they won't have research dollars. The only thing that they are doing is hurting us. It is the reason, if we're going to talk about numbers and mandates, it is the reason that the only person in recent modern times to have the lowest approval ratings at their 100-day mark is the same person the first time they were in and now this time. It is time for us to get serious and talk about what will grow our economy, what will bring more money in, what will make sure that people can move up from working poor to middle class and maybe even reach this higher level that so many of y'all listen to, this upper echelon, this rich level, because that is what is supposed to set us apart in this country. We are supposed to live in a country where everyone has an opportunity to go from rags to literally riches. And so I am asking my colleagues to start looking out for the people that elected them. And this is one way that we can do it, by supporting this amendment of Ms. Lee. And with that, I will yield.
Well, cut to the chase, call like it is. Speaking of call like it is, on Wednesday, Vice President Kamala Harris gave her first major speech since leaving the White House. She spoke to Emerge in New York, and it was a 16-minute speech. We streamed it on the Black Star Network. We did want to show you some of what she had to say, and she continued her theme of talking about this threat to democracy that we are seeing right now with a thug in chief.
The American people deserve leaders who make their lives better and make our country stronger. But sadly, we have seen quite the opposite over these past few months. Now, I know tonight's event happens to coincide with the 100 days after the inauguration, and I'll leave it to others to give a full accounting of what has happened so far. But I will say this. Instead of an administration working to advance America's highest ideals, we are witnessing the wholesale abandonment of those ideals. And what we are also seeing in these last 14 weeks is Americans using their voice and showing their courage. We all know President Trump and his administration and their allies are counting on the notion that fear can be contagious. They are counting on the notion that if they make some people afraid, it will have a chilling effect on others. But what they're overlooking, what they have overlooked, is that fear is not the only thing that's contagious. Courage is contagious. The courage of Americans who are banding together in the face of the greatest man-made economic crisis in modern presidential history. Americans across the political spectrum who are declaring that the president's reckless tariffs hurt workers and families by raising the cost of everyday essentials, devastate the retirement accounts that people spent a lifetime paying into, and paralyze American businesses, large and small, forcing them to lay off people, to stop hiring or pause investment decisions. The courage of Americans we are seeing who are rallying at Social Security offices to protect their hard-earned benefits. Of Americans who are speaking out to say, it is not okay to violate court orders. Not okay. Saying it is not okay to detain and disappear American citizens or anyone without due process. The courage of judges to uphold the rule of law in the face of those who would jail them. Of universities that are defying unconstitutional demands that threaten the pursuit of truth and academic independence. And I will tell you, the courage of all these Americans inspires me. And I have been inspired by the movements like the one in Wisconsin that put Susan Crawford on the Supreme Court. By the State of the People Power Tour that is aiming to ignite a grassroots movement to lift up voices and advance freedom and justice. And by leaders across the spectrum, including congressional leaders like Cory Booker, Chris Van Hollen, Chris Murphy, Jasmine Crockett, Maxwell Frost, AOC, and Bernie Sanders. All who, in different ways, have been speaking with moral clarity about this moment. So here's one of the other things I wanted to talk about tonight and to highlight. So look, some people are describing what's been happening in recent months as absolute chaos. And of course, I understand why. And it's certainly true of those tariffs. Tariffs that, as I predicted, are clearly inviting a recession. But friends, please let us not be duped into thinking everything is chaos. I know it may feel that way, but understand what we are in fact witnessing is a high-velocity event where a vessel is being used for the swift implementation of an agenda that has been decades in the making. An agenda to slash public education. An agenda to shrink government and then privatize its services. All while giving tax breaks to the wealthiest among us. By the way, an agenda that is not lowering costs, not making life more affordable, and not what they promised. It's an agenda, a narrow, self-serving vision of America, where they punish truth tellers, favor loyalists, cash in on their power, and leave everyone to fend for themselves, all while abandoning allies and retreating from the world. And folks, what we are experiencing right now is exactly what they envisioned for America. Right now, we are living in their vision for America. But this is not a vision that Americans want. We are living in a moment when the checks and balances upon which we have historically relied have begun to buckle. And we here know that when the checks and balances ultimately collapse, if Congress fails to do its part, or if the courts fail to do their part, or if both do their part, but the president defies them anyway, well, friends, that is called a constitutional crisis. And that is a crisis that will eventually impact everyone. Because it would mean that the rules that protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, that ensure each of us has a say about how our government works, will no longer matter. And if that happens, the one check, the one balance, the one power that must not fail is the voice of the people.
Folks, if you want to see the full speech from Vice President Kamala Harris, go to our Black Star Network app or go to our YouTube channel for the full speech. That is it for us. We will see y'all on Monday. Don't forget, support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club to contribute via Cash App. Simply use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. And if you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com. If you want to send a check or money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Don't forget, get my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. Also, of course, get out Roland Martin Unfiltered swag, our new shirts, merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, wall art, mugs, and more. RolandMartin.creator-spring.com, RolandMartin.creator-spring.com. The QR code is right there as well. And of course, you can go to blackstarnetwork.com. Also, download the Black Star Fanbase. Be sure to get the Fanbase app, Apple Store, as well as the Android Play Store. Or if you want to invest, go to startengine.com/Fanbase. Folks, that's it. Hope you have a fabulous weekend. I will see y'all on Monday. Holla!